Good evening, it's Eva. Tonight I'm going to discuss, I guess I'm going to talk about the Dark Triad, which I haven't done in a long time, and then maybe a little bit about nature versus nurture, and I might delve into narcissism, which I'm like, oh, this is like a narcissist. It comes up in everything, but that is like, I feel like another phrase, concept. I know it's relevant, I know it's important, but it's like, it's so like overused, especially on the internet, to the point where it's like, you know, I remember growing up, like, I'm gonna show my age. I remember growing up in the 80s and 90s, you know, and we've never heard that term. We never knew what that was. Nobody was running around saying, oh, my ex is such a narcissist, or, you know, whatever. Like, there's not any of this talk about all this stuff, which is great that there is, but it's also just like, I think, just like I said yesterday, that people tend to use the term trauma sometimes in the wrong context. I think narcissism gets thrown around like everything, you know, like, oh, we don't know what something is. Oh, we can't identify like what's going on psychologically. Well, it must be narcissism. Like, honestly, a lot of stuff, in my opinion, is genetic or DNA or environmental. And sometimes I just think people just take what they see, like, in entertainment, and they just mimic it, you know, like, they see, like, certain types of ways of behavior, like, get all the girls, or, you know, like, the person's, like, James Bond, you know, he's, like, super successful, so it's, like, sometimes I think people just take on identities that aren't even theirs just because they want to attain these certain things, all right? So they just, maybe they don't know themselves super well, like maybe they haven't done any internal work, and it's like, sometimes I just think people are like just projecting different personas, you know, in the moment that they feel like work for them, you know? And so I don't know, you know, I think a lot of stuff's spiritual these days, but that's just where I'm coming from. That might not be anybody's cup of tea to hear about. Okay, let's start with nurture versus nature. What does that mean? It means, okay, I'll use a prime example of this British show that I was obsessed with called Happy Valley. Is that right? I think so. And anyway, it's about, I think this was like 3 years ago. Basically, the whole show's premise was there was this grandmother, super cool lady, and sorry about someone's doing landscaping, and she's raising her grandson. I believe at that time, maybe he was 9 or something at the beginning of the show, and then they like fast forwarded it like maybe 6 years on the second or last season of it, and he was like a teenager. But the whole premise of the show was that the grandson's father was basically a psychopath, and he had this, he was a dark triad narcissist, beyond narcissist. A dark triad personality is somebody who has Machiavellian traits. Machiavellian is he was like I want to say the 1400s Italian business type mentor for courts and the king, and like he was like an advisor, intellectual of course, and he would come in and just basically sort of teach people who were in leadership positions how to use their core traits, that they might naturally have, how to enhance the parts of them that would make them a better leader and command more attention and respect from others. Like, honestly, a lot of the principles are fairly common sense, I think, but a lot of them are like stuff you get like out of the power of, what is that, power of 48 laws of power, is that right? Robert Greene, is that right? That kind of thing. But it's like, pre-internet. Like, people needed a real live person to teach them how to, they couldn't like self-teach themselves on like YouTube, how to do this. They needed somebody to come in there and fine-tune like what they needed to do to be more naturally, as a leader or a king or a ruler or someone in charge of everybody, like supposedly you would have that position because you're naturally like that anyway. You're naturally a problem solver. You're naturally somebody who can look at, like King Solomon in the Bible, somebody who can look at the big picture and assess what's going on and then select the best strategy to go forth to get the desired outcome, right? That would be the best case scenario. But of course, most kings and queens and all that were, it's like the British monarchy. They were just born into it. So a lot of these people actually didn't have very good people skills. They actually were not good at problem solving, because one of the things you need to be an excellent problem solver is to been put in a variety of situations over your life that are with all kinds of differing people. That's why David in the Bible was, I think, one of the best kings, because he was on the run for so long that he, because King Saul was trying to kill him all the time. So he was constantly forced to interact with all kinds of different people, all kinds of different communities, all kinds of different cultures and ethnicities, is that right? And also Joseph, sorry, as usual, I'm having iPad stand issues. I got a new stand, but it's all like in little screws and pieces, and I gotta put it together, which someone with a visual impairment, it's gonna be like about as much fun as taking a hammer and smacking my face into it. Anyway, was he a king? Joseph, he was in Egypt, right? So I don't think he'd be a king. He's a leader. Joseph was good because Joseph also, he was in prison for a long time. I want to say 13 years. I could be wrong. He was cast out from his own where he lived and was raised. So he was forced to go to a foreign land, learn the language, learn the customs of the people, and in both high society and in, I mean, I don't want to say like people who are incarcerated or in a lower sphere of social hierarchy, but you know, tends to be the case that the poorer you are, the less resources or education you have. I can say this having done jail library for so long. There's a correlation between that. So anyway, basically, he was around so many different types of people that he was forced to solve problems in all different conditions with all kinds of different people who would probably argue differently, consider certain things more important than others. It wasn't like a homogeneous population that he was raised in. So, I mean, it wasn't the homogeneous population that he was raised in that he was forced to contend with and make life-altering decisions for, you know, large groups of people, you know. And that like grows you and makes you actually a better leader. Oh, lame. Anyway, so Machiavelli. If you have a Machiavellian, if you're considered Machiavellian, you're the type of person who, it's more a personality, I wouldn't say it's not a disorder, a personality trait, where you would be interested in strategy, you'd be interested in winning, you'd be an extremely competitive person. And I guess I'll just hold it. And so it would be very important for you to be a winner. It'd be very important for you to be considered top of your game. You would care about materialism. You would care about status. You would care about superficial things more than you would care about you know, like as if you were like a friar or a nun, right? And like your job is to like help the poor, like, you know, people nobody cares, you know, not that nobody cares about, people that you would not be interested in, people you could not level up from having relationships with, basically, if you're Machiavellian. It's very much, you would, if you're Machiavellian, you're going to choose to be around, you're going to purposely put yourself in situations where you're around the right kind of people. You want to be seen by the right kind of people. You want to compete with certain group of individuals to gain a higher level. Machiavellian, you're also extremely it's almost like, it's like, I think it's like high level survivalism, right? Like you're in survival mode because you think, as this dog eat dog world, if you don't get power, someone else is going to steal it from you. Like it's a very, like, it's bizarre. It's like a scarcity mindset, but you're in high value environments. So like it's not like you're in a prison camp like fighting over the last, you know, piece of bread. That's not what it is. It's like you're in high stakes environments and you're trying to gain an edge you're basically assuming everybody's cheating. You're assuming everybody is out for themselves. You're assuming you have to get there first, and there's almost like a limited positions of top tier positions, and like you have to do what you have to do to get those. That's what Machiavellianism is. And then where these other things that are part of the Dark Triad, they're not personality. I always thought as Machiavellianism is something like you choose to be more like you. It's very environmental. Like, I mean, you could look at, I mean, clearly he's a psychopath, but you could look at that guy on Wall Street who stole all the money. What is his name? The Ponzi scheme. What is wrong with my mind? Madoff. Madoff to me is kind of Machiavellian. It's like, I almost like think of Machiavellians as like they're gamblers. Like they're gamblers of status and power and almost flattery and material assets. Like, it's like I think of Machiavellianism has an element of rolling the dice, or like risk taking, even though supposedly you're trying to like use the system in a way that benefits you. But to me, I think of Machiavellians as people who not only are doing that, but sorry, I'm on a park bench and it sucks. Not only are they doing that, but they like the thrill of the chase, if you will. Like, they get off on competing with others. They get off on risking. It's like they could have plenty of money. They could have luxurious surroundings, but it's like it's not enough. Like, they need the power of the chase. They're kind of like womanizers, only the woman is like a business, you know, like a, I mean, I think of them more like chess players, I guess, or but for the thrill. They're like there's some kind of element of, I won't say sexuality, but they're attracted to the chase of what they're trying to accomplish, and they're bored and feel, I wouldn't say like failures, but they don't feel success. They don't feel like, they don't like themselves if they're not at in a certain position or vying for a certain position. It's like, I don't know. I think it's kind of a shallow way to live, but like, it's really none of my business. If that's what people want to be, whatever. Why is that dangerous? Why would that be a dark triad trait? Why does that matter? Because Machiavellians tend to be in businesses. Oftentimes they're leaders in a business, or they're the boss. So if, you know, you have a boss that's manipulative, takes credit for your work, works in unfair ways, to benefit themselves, really. Like, they're not really working for the good of the company or the end goal of whatever their business is about. Really, they're extreme. I mean, they are narcissistic in that they highly care what other people see them as. They're usually very prone to wanting to be on state, like to be like validated on a bigger level, like on TV or news, or, you know, being like on the cover of a magazine saying that they're like, you know, one of the top 5 leaders or business leaders in the community, you know, like that kind of thing. That's their kind of spiel. The point is, they're dangerous because they use people as instruments to achieve their end. Like, they don't really consider, they don't think of people as people, right? They think of people as a means to an end. They think of people as there for their disposal. And I guess that's where the concept of chess comes in. Like, they don't have compassion, they don't have empathy, they don't have, or if they do, they have it on very, very, very low levels. They don't have guilt or shame the same way most people have it. Now, I think narcissists, like just a narcissist, can have great shame because, you know, they might not feel guilty about anything, but I think it's shame-based, because I think most narcissism comes from deep wounds in childhood, or you're raised by other narcissists who teach you, basically by the environment you're in and the nurturing you receive, how to be a little mini narcissist, and then you grow up as one. But it's like, at the heart of a narcissist is somebody who doesn't have their own grounded personality, their own sense of strong selfhood. So they feel adrift. They feel like any moment somebody could expose that or take advantage of that. So they feel and usually children who are exploited or neglected, especially sexually abused, or physically abused, psychologically, have low self-worth, obviously, for obvious reasons. And so it's easier for them to be drawn to becoming somebody who is highly attractive, have a charisma or aura that draws people in, but not just like talent or beauty, but like, it's about power. It's about being, it's always with narcissism about being in charge of everybody else so that you can stay in charge of yourself, really. So, but I wouldn't say Machiavellianism is anything like that. I think, like, the difference between a sociopath and a psychopath is that psychopaths tend to be harder to detect, and I think they've shown that in like lots of movies and TV shows and literature, that psychopaths are like Tommy from Happy Valley, which was, okay, so the woman cop, her grandson's father is a psychopath, and he tore apart her daughter psychologically so much that her daughter ended up killing herself because he just, basically psychologically manipulated her to the point where she just needed his validation so much. And then when, he discarded her or whatever, she just had the child and killed herself. But that show shows an excellent representation of a psychopath, because a psychopath is usually somebody who can have a conversation with you or a dialogue with you. Now, whether they're mimicking care and concern, or, well, I mean, they probably are if they're a psychopath. They don't feel genuine connection with other people like the average person does. So they study it in other people. They study what that looks like in somebody else, and then they mimic it, and they take on the mannerisms, the tone of voice, my bracelet just got stuck on my shirt. Okay. A psychopath is somebody who is usually, like Ted Bundy was a psychopath, obviously, but it's like he was very charismatic, and like look at him compared to like Charles Manson. It's not very charming, right? So a sociopath is somebody who becomes like part of the Dark Triad, or like a sociopath is somebody that usually they're raised in a horrendous environment, and they've been treated at a young age to such extreme violence, exploitation, being used by, family members or friends of the family, or like they've only encountered in their lifetime they're only encountered in their lifetime transactional relationships. Like they have absolutely no idea what unconditional love or true care and concern is. They only know what they've been taught, right? So sociopaths tend to be incarcerated at an extremely high level. In terms of the Dark Triad, which is Machiavellianism, psychopathy, narcissism. And remember, in the DSM-5, which is like the Bible of mental health disorders by the Psychological Association of America, there is no psychopath designation or sociopath designation. It's under antisocial personality or conduct disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder is one, but it's antisocial personality if you're a psychopath or sociopath. But sociopath is completely different. Sociopaths tend to be lower economic or educational rung. They tend to be I'm not trying to be rude, they tend to be louder, they tend to be more, I think they tend to be more like borderline personality types, in that, or like a bipolar person having a manic episode type behaviors. Like they tend to be very reactive. They tend to be extremely impulsive. Like a sociopath would be somebody who would like go rob a 7-Eleven without, in broad daylight, without thinking about is this even like a lucrative time to do it? You know, like, is this even, are my chances of getting caught like really high because it's daytime? Or like 7-Eleven probably has a lot of cameras. You know, like, I mean, like, they don't think ahead. They're very impulsive. They're just might be like, I need to get high. I need to get money for it. I have a gun. I'm just going to go rob this store. Like, they don't, and that's why they tend to be incarcerated, because they don't have long-term, they don't have like the, I don't know if it's probably because their amygdala or their frontal lobe or something about how, you know, when you're raised in extremely traumatic, extremely abusive or neglectful environments, especially if, you know, there's filth and drug abuse, alcohol abuse, horrific conditions, like the tendency to have your brain develop in a normal capacity where you would have long-term strategic ability to think ahead and plan ahead and think, oh, I'm going to set a goal. Like, I want to lose, 30 pounds by next January. So I'm going to, this is how I'm going to do it month by month. This is my plan. Like, they can't do that. They actually don't have the capacity to delay satisfaction, which is why they always do impulsive, dramatic things. They also have a tendency towards, I think, more prone to addictive personalities. They're more prone to indulge in a lot of fast, quick ways to feel better immediately in the moment, on a continual, constant rotation. These are the people who, like, they've been partying since they were like 15 and now they're like 55, and it's like, it's not cute anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, they're not like saving up for a vacation and then experiencing pleasure. You know what I mean? Like, they're going out, getting high, constantly having sex with whoever, and just, like, they're just doing it all. Like, all the circuitry that can reward, it's like their reward circuit hamster wheel is like fully ignited. Where a psychopath is somebody who extraordinarily good at long-term planning and thinking, definitely will scout out, tend to be more stalker. I guess sociopaths are stalkers too, but a psychopath, like, kind of like that, what's that character, what's his name, Joe, who has a bookstore? What is that show? You? Yeah. Now, he's a classic psychopath, because he can, he plans forever, he studies people, he's got it mapped out for years before he even, starts getting into somebody. Like, I mean, he can delay gratification, but when he's ready to get gratified, then he starts to show more sociopathic tendencies where he's too impulsive. He makes a lot of rapid fire mistakes. Once he locks into his whoever he chooses to be his, desired victim or whatever, like, once he's locked in, it's like, then he starts to fuck up. But until he gets to that point, it's almost like he's, drafting a game, and he's very meticulous and very, like, detail oriented, and he's all Dark Triad is not called Dark Triad because they're demonic or they're evil people or they're dark personality per se. Dark, I mean, like, like, look at, like, all the vampire movies, right? Isn't, like, every vampire movie, isn't the guy or woman, they're usually highly attractive, they're usually very sexy, they're usually, like, almost like sirens, right? They can, like, draw people in, and that's how they, you know, that's how they get their victims, right? It's a similar type of appeal, a dark, like a million, like, shows or series about sexy attractive people with the term dark in it, you know, like it's under the radar, secretive, forbidden, you know, it's but dark, the reason Dark Triad is called Dark Triad is because their shadow, their characteristics that people have, personality traits that people have that they don't want other people to know they have. They keep what their real motivations to themselves. Like they're master manipulators because they don't show their hand, you know, like if someone come up to you, you know, who's super hot and it's like, hey, I'm a grifter, I'm a con artist, you know, you want to go out with me? You know, like that. You're not gonna go out with them, right? So it's like that. It's like the reason they're skilled at seducing people and, you know, taking their money or taking, you know, having their way with them sexually and then, like, just never even bothering to think about them again. It's because they have an ability to compartmentalize, and they're really they have like hidden agendas, secret, you know, they're secretive. But what we tend in this society to reward, we don't reward secretive people who are going to steal our money and trick us, you know, into toxic relations. And supposedly that's not what we're all about. I don't know, like you look around society and you're like, it looks like that's what people are about. But most people don't want to be like made a fool of and taken advantage of and like left on red. Like most people, that's not like their goal in life, you know, to be like somebody's patsy. But that's why these people mimic the traits of people who are not like that. It's like they take on all the, it's like almost like a suit, you know, like a coat they put on, you know, of like, what do good, honest people, like why do people like, you know, warm people who are pleasant to be around, people who are have your best interest at heart, people who are, you know, pillars of society, like what qualities do they have? And then they mimic those, and then they bring all their like secret, you know, bad behavior. It's like all meshed together into some like nightmare of social, I don't know what. Social pariah. But whenever any of us watch movies, you know, who makes a good villain? Social pariah, you know, like whoever has those dark triad traits, they're the hottest villain ever, right? Because it's a movie and it's not our real life, so it's like it's okay to like have that, you know, as appealing because it's not real. But the problem is, like, of these three things, the three, Machiavellism, psychopathy, and narcissism, one in every 25 people in America has one of those going. I mean, like, they're fully embodying it. You know, and it's like probably your, you know, everybody can think of somebody in their life that, you know, family, coworker, friend, you know, your cousin's boyfriend, whatever. You know, everybody knows somebody who they identify as a risky person to be involved with, somebody who isn't who they present themselves to be. Like, literally everybody knows someone like that, right? So it's not that hard to believe that that's 1 in 25 people. It's easy to believe. But the problem with people is people want to believe because it's easier. It makes people feel more comfortable to believe that these people are, one, that they, if such a person was to be in their life, they would be able to catch it, which is absolutely not true at all. And you can't. It's almost, I mean, like, there's like a guy, I always put his videos, he's like a CIA analyst or a retired one. I always put his videos, I want to say his first name is Chase, on my Threads account, and he always has videos where he shows, like, hey, I'm like a CIA analyzer person, and like, I can't tell a psychopath. Like, if I were in a room, you know, like, I could tell you the traits I'd be looking for if I suspected it in somebody, but definitively I cannot. So if that person can't, then why does the average person think they can? Because people want to believe that they're safer than they are. People aren't safe, but they want to believe they are. What's the other reason people don't see this coming when they get involved with someone like this? They don't see it coming because there's a quote, don't ask a monster about his past, because once he starts telling you, you'll fall in love with him, something like that. But it's like, I think a lot of times people who do have ulterior motives that they're not for the good of whoever they're luring in, they know that if they have a good sob story, you know, and maybe they do have one, maybe it's usually highly legitimate that they do, because most of the people with these traits have shitty backgrounds, you know. That's why they don't trust people. That's why they're trying to trick people, because they actually don't feel lovable. They actually don't believe anybody would love them for themselves. They don't believe anybody would stay with them if they knew who they really were. That's the whole point of the act. The act is to, like, snag somebody or reel them in and keep them with this false front, right? Because they truly don't believe if anybody really knew them, they would stay with them. They think they would, like, get bored and leave, or they would not be impressed if they were them true selves. But ultimately, that's usually because they don't feel that way organically about themselves. And if they were, you know, anybody who's been severely abused or neglected or sexually assaulted, I mean, I'm sorry, you're going to have low self-worth, and you're going to have a lack of self-confidence. You know, whether you had that before or not is... The problem is most of these things happen in childhood when you're developing as a person. So it's like, how are you supposed to come up with self-esteem when you've been, like, if, like, your parents been degrading and demeaning you for your whole life and telling you you're a piece of shit, and, you know, like, you've watched your mom or siblings being, like, beaten or psychologically destroyed by this same person. It's like, how are you supposed to be like, oh, I have a great sense of self? Like, that is it's not really possible. That's why you have to then choose to develop that in yourself, like a lifelong project. I find myself that I think the only sense of strong self I got was from my adopted family, my grandparents and my uncle. And if I had stayed living with my natural biological parents, especially my mother, like, I would either be dead, probably the most likely scenario, or if I was still living, I wouldn't have any social skills, or I wouldn't have any social skills to function in the world, because my mom would have no idea how to do that, and she couldn't stand me anyway, so she certainly wouldn't be sitting around trying to, and still she doesn't even have the ability to I don't even have the ability to mimic a good person if she tried. She was a good person somewhere deep inside there. Just schizophrenia has the ability to fracture your real core personality and shatter it into a million pieces, and all that's left is the mental illness, the person. Just like addiction, it's like the real person is gone, is not even like hidden or in there somewhere. It's like eviscerated, like destroyed, eliminated, like wiped out, blotted out, never to be seen again, But I digress. Oh, my notes. Okay. Okay, I was going to talk about a book called The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is the famous novel written by Oscar Wilde. And in it, there's this young hot guy, right? And he's beautiful. He's like the most beautiful person, like, in the whole community. And he has a natural charismatic personality that everybody's drawn to. So he has both these things that are highly favored in someone who wants to climb in society, right? And be well liked and receive attention and success, both personally and financially. He's all these things, right? But he basically sells his soul to the devil, because it's kind of like a Faustian thing. Like, he basically is terrified, his inner person, like who he really is, it's not developed. Like, it's not, he doesn't have he just has an aura that draws people in. He has his physical good looks matched with his youth, matched with his status in society, and then coupled with this sort of magnetic way of exuding confidence, means that he can basically have anybody he wants, or procure material things. He's just he doesn't have to try. Basically, he doesn't really have to have a strong sense of self, or a purpose in life that's something he built, you know, like a purpose or a mission in life to, you know, like or like a career or something that's built on his real talents. It's like everybody adores him without all. He doesn't even need to bother. He's already, you know, he can already seduce anybody he wants. And but he gets this freaked out fear. He becomes friends with this painter. He's, I think, a good person, and then there's this other guy in there. He's a freaking jerk. He's also part of his little circle of upper bourgeoisie. That guy's a pig, but Lord Henry, I think is his name. He's very hedonistic and only interested in pleasures of the flesh and like dicking people over. He's a hedonistic narcissist, Lord Henry. But the Basil is a good man. That's the painter. But anyway, he's hanging out with these people, and Basil decides he wants to paint him. So he paints him, you know, and of course it's a gorgeous portrait. But then Dorian Gray becomes freaked out. I don't know if he has a nightmare, but he becomes consumed with the idea that he will age, he will get older and, you know, not as attractive, like he's at the peak of being attractive. And he starts to think, what happens when I'm not like this anymore? Like, what happens when I lose, you know, when I'm not the hottest thing around? Like, and my painting still is gonna be, it's gonna stay in time exactly how I am. It's gonna be what I was at the top pinnacle of, you know, who I was, you know, like my best self. What happens when I'm not that anymore? And he becomes obsessed with the idea of losing his looks. And so he sells his soul to the devil, basically, by basically stating that he wants the painting to absorb all his sins and all his mistakes, all his fallibilities. He wants the painting to reflect that, and he doesn't want it to reflect on him. Like, he doesn't want to age, and like, you know how, like, if people go down a path that's not healthy for them, you know, they start to look like whatever they're doing. He doesn't want any of that. He wants to be able to do whatever he wants with no repercussions. Any repercussions, he doesn't want to have consequences for anything. He wants that all to go to the portrait. So that's what happens. And at some point, he like love bombs this chick. Her name's Sybil Vane. Get it, Vane? And he's all into her. And so she's an actress, and him and his friends go see one of her plays. But she's so lovesick and obsessed with his approval of her. Like, she's just become like basically his little mini robot, you know, yes person. And so she does like a horrible job in the play. Like, it's her worst performance ever. And like, so he's so embarrassed by his friends, he tells her, you know, you're not worth loving, like you know, because she's so lovesick, you know. He's like, you're not worth loving, you're not worth even paying a ticket to go see. Like, you're not what you were. And she kills herself. So, and then people start to notice that everybody around him, like he draws in all these people, but then if you look at, like, how are these people doing in general, you know, after their relationship with him, like friends, colleagues, especially lovers. And like, everybody's doing like real shitty. Like, it's like you know, not good. Like, I think his best friend becomes like a raging alcoholic, and I think like all these women he has sex with, and then he dumps them. And they like all are like ruined. Like nobody wants, you know, because they're not supposed to have sex during that time period, you know, Victorian or whatever, outside of marriage. So they're all fucked. And so he becomes this like, everybody starts to over time see this sort of crude individualism in him, where it's like he really doesn't give a fuck, you know. He's really just like in it to win it, you know. He doesn't really care. And yeah, things start he starts to get a bad reputation because he just gets in over his head with wanting to keep up this certain persona. And like, instead of like when he hears bad rumors about himself, or like constructive criticism, he's like, oh no, I'm not incorporating that or listening to that whatsoever. So he just splits his personality in two, and then he starts to have nightmares, like the lovers he's scorned or whatever, and like business relationships that have gone corrupt, or like everything that he's done wrong starts to haunt him, but only in his sleep. Like when he wakes up, he's still, you know, totally hot and can still just keep going. But at night he can't sleep. He's like tortured in his nocturnal hours. And so he goes to this random town, and he falls in love with this young girl, but he's like, okay, well, this time I'm not going to seduce her. I'm not going to have sex with her. I'm not going to, you know. And so then he comes back to his painter friend, and he's like, look, I'm like a changed person. I'm like, now I'm a good person. Like, I didn't take advantage of her. Like, are you so impressed? Like, I'm really making strides here. And the guy's like, no, that was not a win, because she's still in love with you. And she's now going to say no to anybody who wants to marry her or have a relationship with her, because she only wants you. Because, you know, you have this, you know, angelic aura that nobody can get over. Like, basically, like, you're walking, like, karma for people, you know. It's like they can't get over you. So, no, that wasn't your best act ever. And it turns out he's that does happen. That girl does do that. So his ultimate curse is that he's haunted by the faces of those who have wronged him. But it's only like I said, it's only in his sleep. And then he gets this paranoid, and then he becomes like paranoid, because I guess he goes somewhere. I don't know if he goes to a party or something, and like the brother of Sybil, the woman who committed suicide, is at the party, and, you know, has like choice words with him and threatens him. So then he becomes completely consumed with fear of being killed by this brother. And he, like, every noise he hears in his house, especially at night, because his nights aren't terrible. He only feels good in the daytime. He thinks this guy's gonna kill him. He's paranoid all the time, so he can't relax. And then he doesn't care for others, so he can't really have deep relationships. So all his relationships are really superficial. And as other people are, like, you know, having families and, you know, spending time in holidays, you know, or like, you know, or have spiritual lives or whatever, you know, people have like fuller inner lives, or they have a career or hobby or passion that they're throwing themselves in, you know, like they have something that lights them up. Like, he doesn't have that. All he has is he's lit up by himself. He's like turned on by himself. He's the shit. It's just like Narcissus in the Greek mythology, the myth of Narcissus. You know, like the guy who's like falls in love with his image in the pool of water. So much so that he just spends like eternity looking at himself. And then I think Echo, like the girl who likes him or something, like he criticizes her or something. I can't remember how it goes, but she goes mute or something. I mean, it's like, you know, similar situation. Anyway, what ends up happening is, I think it's the artist. It might be the other guy. The guy who was the hedonistic lord, whatever. One of those two guys, I think it's the artist. He goes and sees his portrait to see how it, you know, how it looks. And it looks like, oh, he looks like a monster. Like the painting has his true personality, like who he really is. All the things that he hasn't faced up to, all the things he hasn't, he's not wanted to look at or deal with in himself. That's all in the painting. And it's aged incredibly and looks, you know, like an old drained man who has a sneer on his face and like a malicious grin. And so he's so angry, he takes a knife and he stabs the painting over and over and rips it to pieces, and then he stabs the artist to death and murders him. So, you know, fortunately, since he made a deal with the devil, you know, like, it's not going to end well for him. I can't remember the ending of the book, but anyway, I kind of have this thing for any kind of book or film about selling yourself to the devil, and I find that concept like fascinating. I just do. I can't comprehend anybody being like, I'm willing to go to hell and suffer for eternity just to have this one lifetime that's like, what, 90 years or 70 years, just to be, you know, have it all here. Like, I'm not understanding, like, it's like eternity or, you know, 100 years. I don't get it, but apparently I'm in the minority because there's a million movies and myths and films and stories about, especially people who in the music industry who want fame, I don't want fame because I know I would be fucking dead within, like, I give myself 18 months. I would be hunted down like a dog if I was famous, but I'd rather live in obscurity. I don't even want to imagine the creative stalkers I would get if I had fame. Anyway. Alright, it's dusk, so that's why you know it's a video by me, and I'm gonna end it. So on that happy note of Dorian Gray killing people.